Welcome to Marine Tech Talk, a podcast about how Teledyne Marine's innovative technologies are enabling scientific discoveries and commercial tasks in the world's oceans and waterways. This episode is the fourth and final episode of our special four-part series on Silbo, Teledyne Webb Research's autonomous underwater glider that recently made the first ever circumnavigation of the Atlantic Ocean by an unmanned underwater vehicle. In this episode of Marine Tech Talk, we speak with Clayton Jones, Senior Director of Technology for Webb Research. Clayton discusses Silbo's journey, some of the significant achievements of the mission, and what those achievements mean to the community using unmanned vehicles for remote monitoring. Now here's our guest, Clayton Jones, with the host of Marine Tech Talk, Melissa Rossi.
Welcome to Marine Tech Talk. Today I'm here with Clayton Jones, who is the Senior Director of Technology for Teledyne Webb Research. And today we're going to talk about the Slocum gliders, the circumnavigation of the Atlantic that you've been listening to for the past 3 episodes, and the significance of Silbo's mission to the community and to unmanned vehicle operation. Hey Clayton, welcome. How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you. And you?
Great. Clayton's one of my favorite co-workers.
Well, thank you.
And always a pleasure to work with. So it's nice to have you here today. Clayton, you've been working with Webb Research and the gliders for a number of years. Can you tell us a bit about your history with Doug Webb and his company?
Sure. I've been privileged to work with Doug and have many adventures with him from the very early days of the company when it was Webb Research. And Doug has always had a vision to provide, let's say, remote sensing platforms and tools to better enable our understanding of the world's oceans. So we've done this in a number of ways with low-frequency sound sources used for long-range acoustic navigation and tomography, profiling floats that are used in the Argo program, and of course what we're talking about today are Slocum gliders. He conceived of gliders in 1986 and convinced Henry Stommel, who was his neighbor across the street, that it would be a good idea. Hank was very interested when he thought about having a race around the world with gliders and what that would do, not in the technical sense, but in training people to think about the world's oceans and talk about eddies and meddies and that sort of thing. So that became the basis of an article that he wrote in 1989 called The Slocum Mission, and Doug is the unnamed engineer in that futuristic vision of gliders roaming the oceans, enabled by satellite communications, things that didn't exist at the time, really. And we as a community have really brought these gliders to life. And I say that not only with Doug, but the engineers, the people who've been piloting them, testing them, academia, the Navy, kind of all bring this platform into a place where it has been very useful. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today.
How did we get from that early development with Doug and the beginnings of the Slocum glider to historic events like this Silbo mission?
With collaboration, often sometimes painful events, as we've all been through. We tend to put stuff in the water and people go, "You're not going to tie a rope to that?" and let it go and hope it comes back, and it usually does. So really, I can't speak more highly about the community that we're involved with in oceanography and their support and enabling of bringing this technology to fruition. We've also been very fortunate with the Office of Naval Research for early support. The gliders themselves really took off. People, we started with actually a thermal engine, a way to harvest energy from the warm surface water to the cold deep water and propel a vehicle. And that's what Doug outlined in his 1986 notebook and said, hey, here's a glider. So from that point, we've added over 50 or 60 different sensor packages onto the platform. We've increased its endurance. We continue to find new uses for these vehicles. And I think when we get to talking about Silbo, it will underline kind of the transition from a nascent technology into something that is really robust, rugged, and capable.
We were talking about with Ben Alsop and Justin Shapiro and Joe Gradone in the previous episodes about Silbo's mission. And it covered quite a bit of distance in time, clearly. So the whole mission took, I think, about 4 years and covered 1,273 days at sea and 22,000, almost 23,000 kilometers. So quite an accomplishment. The third leg itself was really quite long, from the Canary Islands to St. Thomas, 417 days at sea, 6,256 kilometers. What does that mean for glider flight? I mean, how is that so significantly different than what we've been able to do in the past?
Well, Silbo is, I think, if we say it's part of a journey or a story, as we brought that technology to life and putting them out with alkaline batteries and pre-iridium days. So we would fly them with FreeWave, a line-of-sight communication systems, off of a 200-foot tower at the Tuckerton, New Jersey site that Rutgers was using. And you would fly them out of range and then hope they turned around and came back in range. So there are a number of enablers here, and iridium communication is certainly one of them. We made some of the first transmissions on that, data transmissions, and it went bankrupt the next day. So that was a little bit of a setback, but came back to life. The gliders themselves, have really proven themselves as far as a sensor suite platform. And there's a whole scientific purpose, and we'll talk a little bit about that, about chasing, krill populations or mammal mitigation and tracking whales, to storm gliders that are better enabling our prediction of storm intensity. It's really about getting below that surface water. So we get satellite imagery, but to get below it, we need to get these platforms. And what Silbo is really showing is the endurance that we're now capable of. So those early days of alkaline batteries of 15-day kind of missions to now over a year has been a merging of better managing our power and having greater energy density.
That power management is really quite significant. So I know the team spend a lot of effort and time understanding the best ways or conditions to fly the vehicles. And I think actually that was some of the challenges originally planned for the Silbo mission, if I'm correct, that they were testing out different piloting techniques to create the ability to stay in the water longer. Am I right on that?
Yeah, and I think it goes a little bit further than that. And this is where crossing an ocean basin, this had actually started with Rick Spinrad, who said, for the good of your country, you need to fly one of these things across an ocean. So in 2007, we attempted to do that, and we didn't quite make it. We made it almost to the Azores and ran into some trouble there. But we picked up the pieces and started again, and in 2008 and 2009, so we made the first transoceanic crossing with one of the Rutgers gliders, and went from New Jersey to Bayona, Spain, which is where Christopher Columbus's ship came in. And that was a technical achievement. However, it was really an educational and outreach achievement. And I'll go into that a little bit further. But the energy consumed, we really worked to get that very reduced to make that crossing. And in addition to that, we were not only feeding models, but using models to best find the trajectory with currents as we went across. And that was particularly challenging with that first glider because it was at a 200-meter depth rating. So as we moved to 1,000 meters with Silbo, it got a little bit easier. You get to get below some of that very active ocean state. But at that time, it was very critical, and we had a whole team of people looking at, and by team, I mean actually students. So Rutgers, in particular, their oceanographic class used to be just seniors, and it started opening up to freshmen, and they had to cap it at 70 students because flying a little yellow robot across an ocean was a really cool thing to do. So that's part of that educational outreach and international outreach that is so important here. It's not just the technical capability, but it's the whole community aspect. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. As a matter of fact, I know that Rutgers has been a key partner for many years, and I know that outreach is a key factor as we go. I think so. The glider's been involved in some other things like the Challenger mission and some other outreach programs as well. So it makes perfect sense. It's a great learning tool, and you're right. It is maybe one of the coolest things ever to fly that little yellow glider through the water for that long from a remote area. I mean, literally, I've talked to a number of people on the podcast over the course of the past year who are glider pilots. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. You can be sitting in your living room and piloting something that's very far away.
Well, if we step back in our story here, it really goes back to Doug, who very early on realized that there were a limited number of research vessels available to us. And to increase that number of ships available was going to be probably just not doable. It's that, ships are very important. They're vital for making some of these measurements, and you can't do without them. But to increase the fleet significantly was a financial hurdle that the countries just can't get over. So to make smaller kind of yellow submarines, if you will, that are 1 to 2 man portable and get them in the water and to be platforms for this type of research was his envisionment of how we better understand the world's oceans. And he's been successful at doing that. And I've been fortunate, as I said, to be part of that journey and be kind of part of the team to make that happen. But it is a team. It's almost a family when you really get down to it.
It is actually, you're right. Even outside our organization, I mean, the whole community seems to become that family. Everybody from all over the world seems to connect and contribute to the information that we get back on the gliders. You mentioned just now about the need or Doug's desire to put the gliders in the water because there aren't enough ships to actually, assess the ocean conditions. And that's still true to this day. So would you say that is one of the reasons that these vehicles are becoming more and more popular as we move forward in time, that they're not building more and more ships, they're actually looking for more and more autonomous vehicles?
I think that's a key part of it. And as sensor suites become sizable and power efficient enough to be able to field multiple different systems for different purposes, whether it be acoustic or physical oceanography, or as we were just talking about, storm gliders. There we've actually supported some Rutgers students in recent years in their education, and they have really, in the past 3 years, significantly reduce the error bars that are associated with storm intensity just by using even a single glider going into a hurricane. So by getting the correct information into the models, we then have a significant impact into our understanding of the environment. And that may mean, you should leave your county, or you're going to flood the New York subway, or those kinds of things. So they've become, really a critical piece. And you wouldn't be able to get that information very readily otherwise. Nobody's going to go out in a boat in a hurricane. You can't get the moorings in the right place when you want them at that time. But a little yellow vehicle can kind of swim its way out, have enough endurance, which is Silbo is proving that we not only have the endurance, but that we're able to operate in all sorts of weather. In fact, Silbo did report in as hurricanes passed overhead. And during the voyage, all the data were being put to the modeling. So it wasn't just a crossing, it was this educational experience where the students were putting and injecting model information and correcting models for NOAA and going, wow, look what we've done. So it's an exciting thing. We talk about the technical achievement, and it is. but I think I'd leave you with these words. When Doug was being interviewed in their version of a podcast by Rutgers students after the first transatlantic crossing, they innocently asked Doug, well, do you have any advice for us? And he sat there and he thought, well, work hard, have fun, and change the world. And that really embodies what the Silbo's crossing and recrossing of the ocean is about. It is about taking that next leap and really trying to better understand our world and make a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that saying has resonated, I think, throughout our company and throughout the industry for probably ever since he made that statement. I know we use it often at work. And that's how most of us feel about what we do every day, right? So the ability to work hard.
It's pretty exciting.
It is. Work hard, have fun, and change the world. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for? You had mentioned earlier as well about the sensor suites enabling other types of applications. So, krill monitoring, whale monitoring. That's all possible because of the ongoing work that your team does with the gliders and sensor integration. Are there new sensors that you've been working on, or where do you see the glider going from here?
Yeah, the sensors keep coming left and right, and I think that's what we've shown as an advantage of this platform, that it has modularity. There's a science payload bay, and not only do we integrate sensors for others, they integrate sensors themselves. As, for instance, for NOAA, ships become unavailable just due to budgetary reasons down in the southern oceans, they're using gliders to do their population studies. So not just krill, but they're using acoustics to image what the food chain is in the water. And they're now adding shadow cameras and capturing, kind of snapshots of, is that acoustic image what I really think it is? And so we just keep on adding to those capabilities. And really one of the most fun things of the job is that people keep coming up with these crazy ideas. And, hey, can we do this? And we go, yeah, that sounds pretty neat. Let's see what we can make happen. So we not only put stuff in the glider, we strap stuff to the glider, we bolt things on top of the glider, from microturbulent sensor packages to the acoustic imaging that we talked about, to nitrate sensors, chlorophyll, fluorocarbon, CO2. The list just keeps going. So,
well, then hopefully it's limitless. I know that as obviously the sensor packages become smaller and more energy efficient, it allows us to do more as well. And the other conversation that I've had with some of our customers is that, one of the advantages now is I think it was Alex Forrest that said to me that it was in the old days that, driving an AUV or driving a glider was in itself a research project. But now there are actually tools that enable researchers to think about what's possible as far as investigation in the ocean, and they don't have to concentrate on the tool itself anymore. So hats off to Webb Research, to your team, and Doug's vision. Amazing. Clayton, I want to thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. I know you're super busy, but super happy to finally nail you down and get you here on the call. Not because you didn't want to be here, but because you've been really occupied with about a million things. But thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll chat again soon. Okay?
Okay. Well, thank you also, Melissa. It's great chatting with you.
Thanks for listening to the Marine Tech Talk podcast. For more information on Slocum gliders, visit our website at www.teledynemarine.com/Slocum-glider. There is a press release on the website that also details the journey, as well as a recorded webinar on the journey that can be found on our Link webinar channel. For more information on how Slocum gliders are helping researchers and commercial customers explore and understand the ocean, you can Google Slocum gliders or search Twitter for posts from our many customers. If you like this podcast, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing this show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.